Hello and welcome to this Dawn Busters Taste Challenge we have this morning from 1830. Well, not this bottle, but the company, William Bellows Blended Whiskey, American Blended Whiskey. The William Bellows Whiskey Handling Company, if you want to call it that, procurers of liquor, founded in 1830, now owned by Luxco. Another liquor handling company, mostly brand holder, bottler. This whiskey is blended for maximum smoothness. A name of honor established 1830, American blended whiskey. 80. These are both 80-20. Okay, 80% grain neutral spirits, 20% straight whiskey. 80 proof, bottled by Bellows Company. Bellows and Company, St. Louis, Missouri, Luxco. Didn't say distilled there, did it? Didn't say blended there. Now, where is it blended and bottled? Oh, who knows? Could it be Lawrenceburg, Indiana? Perhaps. Which is like the biggest distillery in the world. All right. B for Bellows. Now we're going up against something from 1976. 43 short years ago, Beam's 8-star brand. Why 8 stars? What does that mean? I don't know. Some kind of Kabbalah numerology, more than likely. A lot of these companies like to slip in coded.
If you shop on Amazon, you should use Wikibuy. It's a browser extension that automatically.
Sorry about that. Forgot to mute it. They use like they put signposts or coded oblique messages in their labels. I found. Like 5-star, 8-star, 7 crowns. Distilled and bottled by Kentucky Springs Distilling Company, Claremont and Frankfort, Kentucky, USA. You say, I never heard of Kentucky Springs Distilling. That's the Beam Company. Okay, Kentucky Springs is Beam, and today Beam Suntory. All right. This used to be 75-25, but they've lowered the percentage of straight whiskey. And this one's only aged 2 years. Look what it says. Age 2 years or more old. The youngest whiskey in here is 2 years or older. You say, wow, 2 whole years. Yeah. Or more. Probably like not more than 2 years. I guess I have enough. I don't think I have enough for another taste challenge. No, this is it. This is it for 8 stars. Sorry, people. But there's no use. Yeah, that's not going to make it. Not going to make it. Oh, well. It's done enough taste challenges. I'm not buying a third bottle. I know that much. The Beam is lighter, not by much. I think I can finish it off here. The 8-star is lighter. Like I said, not by a whole lot. Just a tad bit lighter. So that's it for the 8-star. Going to go out to retirement. Now we got to even them out. So the Luxco, the Bellows, is a little darker. Now, the Whiskey Scout last night was showing Bellows, and they said, oh, look, he's got the same as me. He said, no, I got the Kentucky Straight Whiskey. He's got the Bellows Kentucky Straight Whiskey. Because there's Bellows Kentucky Straight Whiskey, Bellows Blended Whiskey. There was Bellows Club Whiskey. Don't know if that's still in production. Might be. There's Bellows Gin, Bellows Vodka, Bellows Rum, Bellows Gold Rum, Bellows, Bellows, Bellows. It's like Aristocrat or Fleischmann's. They have a whole line. I think I'll be able to tell them apart because the Beam's 8-star has that Jim Beam kind of characteristic, that green wood and cellar mold type thing. It's not going to be as strong in the Beam 8-star as the 8-star as you would get in a Jim Beam straight bourbon aged 4 years. So what do they use as their straight whiskey in this blend? You know, it's 80% corn whiskey or grain neutral spirit or grain alcohol, whatever you want to call it. It's unaged, okay? Then the whiskey is aged at least 2 years and blended in, and then they bottle it. And they're allowed to color it with caramel color if they want to darken it. They're not required to, and they're not required to disclose it. It's probably just a 2-year aged Jim Beam, and they probably use that for their Kesslers. I noticed one thing: Beam Suntory revamped their website. They only show a few brands now. They used to have a big list. Then later they had a much smaller list. And now they have an extremely restricted list. No longer list Kesslers, no longer list Windsor Canadian. It's like most of their brands, they don't bother showing on their website. They just show a handful of the real prominent ones. So it's like, oh, look at our wonderful portfolio. What about all the other dozens? Oh, well, pay no mind to those. Strange that they wouldn't even list them, but then they're not the only company like that. Seems to me if I was a liquor company, I would list everything I produced. I do like McCormick, the premier, then the regular ones, and then the like budget ones. You know, just call it what you want. Bacardi does the same thing. They say, well, here's the other stuff we make. And then you just give a list. They don't describe it. But it's sad in a way because the Kesslers, they would have a nice write-up about it, you know. But you know, I can't answer for Beam Suntory. It seemed like ever since they got bought out by Suntory, everything's been going down as far as expenditure. I don't know. That could be just a misapprehension on my end, but it's not there on the website. Getting a lot of wood pickup in the nose here. I don't need to close my eyes because I can't tell them apart by glancing, and I'm not going to glance at it. It's like standard corn grain alcohol and wood and vanilla and the aroma generally associated with whiskey. Now, you might say, don't use that terminology, but that's what the government says. United States government. That's a regulation. You know that? The requirement to be whiskey is it has to have the aroma and flavor generally associated with whiskey, right? All right, so you can't make a whiskey that tastes like rum. It legally would not be whiskey. Now, you might say, that's pretty subjective. It is. But you wouldn't smell whiskey and think it was chocolate syrup, right? This smells less woody, green wood, and less Beamish. Jim Beamish, you know what I'm saying? Now remember, it's the Beam Company. Jim Beam is a brand of Beam. The company is not called Jim Beam. Everybody calls it that, you know, but it's not the name of the company. In fact, the name of the company today is Beam Suntory, Beam-Suntory. And it's probably more Japanese than Americanese. This smells a little maybe cleaner in the nose. You're just getting grain, cereal grain. Obviously, something's itching my nose. What that is? Cereal grain. Distilled product. It's not bad. You don't get any weird things like you get with those Heaven Hill brands, like that melon, like honeydew melon. Like, why would it smell like that? You don't know. Let's go with the taster. That could present some oddities. There is a little bit of that in the taste. That melon, candy corn. You know, it's all corn. Like, that's why it has that taste, because it get a lot of sweetness and whatnot. Wood, yeah. It's like 80% not woody and 20% woody. Makes sense, huh? But these blended whiskeys, all the flavor is topside pretty much. Makes sense, because 20% of the flavors, 20% of the product is the straight whiskey. 80% is the column still grain alcohol. Irish whiskey, Scotch, blended Scotch whiskey, Canadian, blended Canadian whiskey. They all have that same principle, so they use a lot of filler, up to 20%. In Canada, it's different requirements. And in Canada and Scotland, it has to be aged 3 years. In America, no. It can be 20% unaged grain alcohol. This one, more wood. Yeah. Still that. I'm not gonna be able to drink all this right now. I'll sip on it later. Still that funky monkey melon stuff. I don't really get that with Canadian whiskey. You get just more, I guess, the aging 3 years in a used barrel. You get, like Canadian whiskey, you get more of that, like corn, like corn starch, like corn filler taste thing. But then the Canadian whiskeys use all these flavorings. So American blended whiskey can have, what did it say, up to 2.5? I can't remember. I'd have to look at the guidelines. This is a very low percentage, up to that percentage of flavorings, like blending sherry. You say, well, that's wine. That's right. Yeah. So your opinion might be that these American blended whiskeys are sort of like some kind of concoction product. Yeah, it's kind of like that. But imagine what they were in the 1880s and 1870s and 1860s before there was any kind of guidelines. You didn't know what you were getting. I'm not saying that the government should be involved in it. I'm saying that did make a difference, though, the bottle and bond. If you really want a purified whiskey, get bottled and bond. Those are very strict guidelines. These are guidelines. They have to exist within the parameters, but the parameters are pretty wide. Oh. The parameters are strict, but wide. And there's no reason for a company to try to violate the regulations, because the regulations are pretty, they're strict, like I said, but there's a lot of leeway, so there'll be no reason to. And then the penalties would be so severe, it wouldn't make any sense. So in Beam and Sazerac and Heaven Hill and Luxco and Laird's, and there's another one in Minnesota, they don't need that negative. Caribbean Distillers in Auburndale, Florida, they don't need that negative publicity for getting in trouble, so they don't. Honestly, the flavors here are very, very similar. There's not much difference. I hate to say it. I don't know why I hate to say it, just what it is. The price, Bellows is cheaper, in my case, $8.99 for that liter. The Beam 8-star was $7.99 for the 750. So in my case, the Bellows was cheaper. Now, in your case, it may not be. You might be able to get Beam cheaper. You see, I don't know. Town to town, it'll vary. State to state, it'll definitely vary. Some things that are high here, like Scoresby Scotch, is low in Georgia. But then things that are low and high in Georgia are low here. So which one's better? I think the one in my right hand is boy, they got a lot of grain alcohol in these. It's like drinking rubbing alcohol in a way. You say, oh boy, it sounds good. Bellows, I think that's Bellows. Okay, here. I think it's Beam. Beam products just have this character. You try to describe it, you can't really adequately. You got to let people drink it, and then they'll get a handle on it. I want to try that Jim Beam non-chill filter that I got in the cabinet unopened. I want to try that. Okay, so I'm going to say the Beam is a winner, but barely. You hear what I'm saying? It barely wins. When you take price into account, it loses. So for all intents and purposes, this is a tie. But honestly, the Beams does taste slightly better. But it's such a small amount of betterness, you know, that if I was shopping, I'd just get the price. I'd just go with what was cheaper, honestly. It would be a perfect trade-off because the slight better flavor doesn't really justify paying $1 more per bottle. No way. But they're fine, you know. I mean, but it is, the Beam is a little better. Assuming this is Beam, 8S, letter 8, number 8, letter S, 8S, 8 star. Yeah. So the 8 star. It's probably the last sip of 8 star I'll ever have in my life. Does it taste like regular Jim Beam? Like I said, it's got that strange green wood and that cellar mold. But the undertaste is that melon, that honeydew melon. You won't get that in straight whiskey like Jim Beam. I mean, it's up to you. I wouldn't really want it, but I gave it a pretty good score when I first tried it. That was when it was a 75-25 ratio. It was better then. I thought they kind of cheapened it. I didn't know a lot about whiskey. Don't know a lot now. Know more. Don't know much. Know more now than I did 4 years ago. Oh, well, it's fine. I mean, I don't plan on buying anymore. Okay, now the Bellows. I might buy it. You know, I mean, I'm not going to buy it again. I have a liter bottle. I have 80% of the bottle left. No, 90%. Am I really going to go buy more of it? I really am not. But it's better than that club whiskey, Bellows Club whiskey. I don't know what's going on with that. That thing is, that is like harsh. It's got a rye note that is harsh. You say, well, I like rye whiskey. Yeah, I do too, but not that way. Not the way they present it, you know. It's just too ragged, rough, garish, grating. That's the word. It's grating on your nerves, that Bellows Club whiskey. But blended, the regular standard Bellows blended today, yeah, it's. I thought I wasn't going to finish drinking it, but I did. People say, you're a morning drinker. More like a taster, really. You want to be techno. I have no desire to drink whiskey at 6 in the morning, tell you the truth. I like to do the taste challenges because they're fun, you know, and you learn a lot. But to say I have some great drive to consume alcohol, no. If they were non-alcoholic, I'd drink them. But only problem is with non-alcoholic drinks, they don't taste good. They lose so much. Like you said, we can get NA beer. I've had many non-alcoholic beers. They don't taste very good. There's some kind of, it's just not, there's a performance problem with them. The alcohol is necessary for the quality of the drink, the integrity of the drink, the integrity of the drink. You say, well, I don't think tasting 4 ounces of whiskey in the morning. If it's 4, I doubt it's that much. It can't be that much. It's going to hurt me. It's such a minimal amount, you know, little tastings. Oh boy, wow, big deal. You know, so that's it. I'm going walking. In a way, though, the Bellows is kind of nicer on the finish. I'm not really picking up so much of that melon. I'm getting like sourdough bitter, you know, sourdough ending. I don't know. You got to try it yourself. I'm saying this and that, but I would say go ahead and get Bellows Club Whisk. No, not that. Get Bellows blended and then get the Beams 8-star, and you can do a taste challenge, see what you think, and give me feedback. I'm saying the Beams won by a nose, but essentially it's a draw. Hate that I missed the World War II stream, says Archie Bunker. Yeah, that was a good stream. I was thinking about more World War II stuff today. I was like, oh, I should have talked about this. I should have talked about that. I should have talked about these other things. But I mean, the video would be 6 hours long. I can't talk about all that. But I could keep doing a number of videos. I intend to do that. It's the 75th anniversary of 1944. Pivotal year in the war. Oh, well, I guess 1943 was more pivotal. That was when it was really obvious that the Allies are going to win. 43, you see. There's no turning back. 43 was when it was definitive. 42 was pretty obvious that, you know, you could say 1942, well, the Axis, they're going to lose, you know. Their chances of winning are so narrow, they're almost like not worth mentioning. And then by 43, then you say, now it's not a matter of if they're going to lose, it's only a matter of when. All right. So by 1943, there's only one question you ask: when, not if. So by 44 was when the momentum was just, it's like a snowball coming down a hill. There's no stopping it. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's not going to stop. And then 45 is just a closeout. You know, it's just the final stage is just, you know, the credits. You know, it's like a movie and the words are coming up already. Kind of like the war between the states and the same time period. You know what I'm saying? Like 1863, that's the year where you know it's only a matter of when, not if. When is the South going to crumble? Not when, not it, are they going to? Because after July 3rd, 1863, there was no doubt that that was going to happen. 1862, it was pretty obvious they didn't have much chance, you see, barring some kind of exotic victory, which almost happened in Pennsylvania. Unfortunately, it did not. But you can look at these conflicts and you can always see the turning point. Japan, okay, now I got to get off of it. Japan ruined everything by introducing the USA into the war. I think Axis could have conquered Europe without us interfering. Probably unlikely. I think it was unlikely they were going to conquer Europe. But they took a situation that was unlikely and they made it guaranteed. You know what I'm saying? Before the United States entered, it was unlikely that the Axis would win, take over Europe. And then by getting the U.S. involved, it was guaranteed that the Axis would not win. But the Axis was very disorganized. If you study that war, their organization was poor. Like they had no game plan. If you'd have stopped and asked the Axis leaders, Mussolini, Hitler, and Hirohito and his prime ministers, what is your plan to win the war? Oh, their plan would have been, we'll think of something, you know. See? Whereas the Allies, they just sat down and said, here's the steps we'll take to win. And they followed the game plan. And they were very coordinated. And so if you take one side that's very coordinated, not to mention much stronger, more powerful, against another enemy, against the enemy who is uncoordinated and weaker, already weaker to start with, then, you know, it's kind of obvious what's going to happen. All right. Anyway, that's it. So thanks for watching. And we might do some more we're going to do some more World War II stuff. Got to. Got to do it. Okay, thanks for watching this video production.